New week, new game, and today we have the Ratatan. If you're here because of Patapon, you're going to feel right at home with Ratatan. The DNA of the classic series is still here, the same sense of rhythm-driven gameplay and that signature charm, but Ratatan pushes things further, leaning more into roguelike elements and farming systems. And of course, the music still hits that familiar energy. This time around, though, the input system has been simplified. Instead of the mix of commands we had before, Ratatan standardized things. 3 buttons to attack, 3 buttons to move, and everything runs on a 3-beat rhythm. It makes the flow easier to learn and more consistent, though at the same time, veterans might find it a little too simplified compared to the original Patapon formula. Now let's talk about some issues that stood out. The first one is the input bar. Right now it flashes bright red and bright blue, and while it's definitely noticeable, it's too noticeable. For a rhythm game where you already focus on timing and reacting to colorful visuals, the flashing effect feels harsh, and honestly it risks being uncomfortable for people sensitive to flashlights. Considering how colorful and calming the rest of the game is, I'd love to see this element reworked into something more visually friendly, especially during intense moments when dodging projectiles. Another point is the roguelike structure. I actually like it. Farming, progressing, and pushing runs forwards gives the game a lot of replayability, but the game doesn't do a great job of explaining why you're farming or what exactly you're working toward. A cleaner in the game guide or better progression explanations would go a long way here. The cut system is another area that could use work. For example, I had my mage pawn firing poison bullets in one run, but in the next, they were shooting thunderbolts, and there was no real explanation why. If you're going to build a progression systems like this, they need to be transparent. Even a simple description or tutorial about how cards affect abilities would clear up a lot of confusion. The same goes for pawn MP skills. A short in-game video or animation showing what each skill does would be incredibly helpful. For example, my hammer pawn kept ending up on the opposite side of the screen, and I had no idea why until I eventually realized it because of the MP skill. If that had been explained early on, it would save a lot of frustration. Boss design also needs some tweaking. The attacks themselves are creative, but the telegraphs, that cues that let you know they're coming, aren't always clear. The World 2 boss, for example, uses the same role for 3 completely different attacks. That makes it almost impossible to react properly the first few times. Giving each attack a more distinctive warning would make the fights more fair without removing the challenge. There's also the jump ability. Right now it only really gets used for the platforming in the internal areas, but in combat it feels kind of wasted. Since it replaces the D-on button, it ends up by feeling like a downgrade. It'll be great if jumping it had some kind of utility during actual battles, so it doesn't just feel like a filler mechanic. That said, there are still plenty of positives. Ratatan takes the core rhythm strategy loop and builds on it with the roguelite elements. The visuals are colorful, stylish, and really polished. The little goblin characters are adorable and full of personality, and even though this is still an early access game, you can see the potential shining through. But yes, it's early access, and that means the game isn't fully balanced yet. The difficulty ramps up quickly, sometimes too quickly. Later walls in particular feels like you're doing almost no damage, even to regular enemies. The skill also feels underpowered compared to the difficulty spike. Personally, I'd love to see the healing skill added to help the sustain goblins and Ratatans during longer fights, just to balance things out. The world progression could also use variety. Right now, you always start into some area, which makes the repeated runs feel a little predictable. Imagine if sometimes you started in the wasteland or maybe just jungle. It would help keep the things fresh on every attempt. And then there's the music. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack is solid and the singing adds charm. But right now, the way the Coben and Ratatan vocals interact with the background music doesn't always feel like cohesive. When your rhythm timing is off, the singing just cuts out abruptly, which sounds jarring. Patapon handled this better by letting even the wrong beats blend into the rhythm, so it never completely broke immersion. That's an area Ratatan could definitely refine. So far, I've put about 6 hours in this game, and while I pointed out a lot of areas for improvement, I still think the game is fun. It's important to remember that this is just the start. The devs have already shared a roadmap, and interestingly, some of the issues I mentioned are already being worked on. That's a good sign. It shows they're paying attention and committed to making Ratatan the best it can be. Final verdict for now? I'd give it 7 out of 10. There's a real potential here for Ratatan to grow into a replayable, beloved series, just like its predecessor. It needs refinement, but the foundation is strong, and I'm so excited to see where the developers take it. For now, I'm going to keep playing, keep testing, and hopefully watch this game evolve into something truly special. So thank you guys for watching this review. See you later!